Hello and welcome to the Face the Nation Diary for Wednesday, January 20th, 2016. I'm John Dickerson in Washington. Yesterday there was a lot of coverage of Sarah Palin's endorsement of Donald Trump. John McCain's running mate has now endorsed the man who disparaged McCain's time in prison, saying that he preferred those who weren't captured, and who also says, Trump does, that McCain has sold out the veterans. McCain might feel bad about this, except that Palin's endorsement cut the legs out from underneath Senator Ted Cruz in Iowa, and McCain does not like Ted Cruz at all. Politics is hard. One other note is that this is another example of a key theme we've seen in this race. The party and the movement most associated with ideological constancy is backing a man who has shown little of it in his career. Sarah Palin used to be the avatar of that very specific quality, the consistent conservative from the heartland of America where values and beliefs were not malleable. She's now endorsing a candidate who has recently made himself the avatar of New York, nearly the geographic and spiritual opposite of Wasilla, Alaska, who was formerly pro-choice, who said the Democrats handle the economy better than Republicans, who said the Iraq War was a mistake, that he likes Bill and Hillary Clinton, and who in March of 2012 thought Hillary Clinton was doing a good job as Secretary of State. Still, I was more interested yesterday in another endorsement, or actually an anti-endorsement, of Ted Cruz by the governor of Iowa, Terry Brandstad. He's the longest-serving governor in the history of these United States. And he started out on the kind of right-hand side of the Republican Party. Now he's sort of in the middle, which is more about where the party's moved than he is. His most recent political coup was recapturing the GOP in Iowa from the Liberty Forces, who supported Rand and Ron Paul, who briefly took over the Iowa Republican Party during the 2012 race and just after. Brandstad said he was not going to endorse anyone this race, but he never said anything about whether he was going to keep his mouth shut about who he didn't want to be the party's nominee. And that's what he said yesterday. He said he didn't think Cruz should be the nominee. At issue is the Renewable fuel standard. Not so much Ted Cruz, but his position on the RFS. It's the federal program that requires transportation fuel to be sold in the United States and to contain a minimum amount of renewable fuels. It's not a direct subsidy, but it creates a market for ethanol, which then gets mixed in as a part of fuel at the pump. Oil companies have been trying to kill the RFS, or at least rein in its requirements that it have this blend of ethanol in it. Brandstad labeled Cruz a big oil candidate whose victory would be, quote, very damaging to our state. It would be a big mistake for Iowa to support him. This is about local Iowa politics. Obviously, corn growers want this mandate to continue, and according to a close associate of Brandstad's I talked to yesterday, it's not just about Cruz and protecting the RFS from him. It's about keeping the pain level high for anyone who would buck the RFS. Senator Joni Ernst, the Republican senator, bit of a hero, folk hero in the conservative movement, once held the Cruz position, opposed continuing the renewable fuel standard. But she changed her mind during the Senate campaign. She is now, and that led to her being the victorious senatorial candidate from Iowa. Brandstad wants to keep the taboo against the bucking the RFS strong because this is a guy who once got into a shouting match in the Roosevelt room with during the Reagan administration when he came to town to basically pound on the door and pound on the table in support of the farmers during the farm crisis during the 80s. He is a man who wants to protect his farmers. There's also a little personal politics that adds a little cherry on the top here. An Iowa source reminded me yesterday, Bob Vanderplatz, who is a local activist, social conservative activist in Iowa, who is supporting Cruz, ran against Brandstad in 2010 in the Republican primary. Brandstad won that primary. But when he spoke out against Cruz, again, because it was about the RFS, but it also throws a little elbow to Bob Vanderplatz. Cruz said this was just more proof that Trump is aligned with the Washington cartel, which puts together good deals for the establishment. That Brandstad's support was a part of that cozy arrangement with the cartel. That's an argument that should resonate with conservatives' grassroots. They've been talking a lot over the last few years about crony capitalism. But even that idea of establishment opportunism appears to be malleable this election season. Yesterday, Cruz said, quote, "It's no surprise the more and more of the establishment is beginning to support Donald Trump. But just 2 weeks ago, his political director said on a conference call, "The other thing we're really watching with great fascination is how more and more of the establishment wing of the Republican Party is coming to our campaign as the alternative to Mr. Trump." Politics is hard. For Face the Nation, I'm John Dickerson.